3 Frenchmen, an all-star Spaniard, and an Englishman make up the roster of TrainHard Esport. This EU gang is looking really, really solid, and going into Miami, they were one of my favorites to potentially find their best finish ever, but were cut a touch short. So will they be able to find the rehearsal needed to find some success in Pool G, or will they kind of folly and flop as we approach this episode of 32 on 32? COD fans, welcome back. IHOLDSHIFT, and I will tell you, I'll be completely honest with you. I try to stay as completely transparent as possible. I'm rooting hard for this TrainHard Esport squad. I tweeted about it during CWL Miami. These guys were a blast to watch on stream. It's just that their run was cut just a touch short while they were there. But this is a very fun squad to watch. I think a lot of players that have been kind of undervalued throughout not only the open bracket, but even for some of them during their time during the CWL. So I'm interested to see what they're able to do in a pool that very well could be open for them to take, or at least finish top 2 in. So let's dig in, look at the pool again. It's Pool G, OpTic Gaming, Evil Geniuses, Carnage Gaming, and then TrainHard Esport. And the roster of Kreza, Natche, Risk, Yako, and Zeke brings a very interesting dynamic to it. You've got Natche, Risk, and Zeke, who all played on that overtime esports squad, turned into Denial at one point in time before Natche, Zeke, and Risk were all moved away from it. They go to the open bracket. They do relatively well at Anaheim, and then they pick up Yako, who was super impressive during his time at Anaheim and is able to help this team get a little bit further forward just to make sure they're at World Championships. And then they also find Kreza, who brings a load of experience with him as well. It just comes down to, are they getting the proper practice? Now, as some of you guys have heard from some of the interviews that we've done so far, that TrainHard is getting very little practice whatsoever. And in fact, beyond that, apparently they're not even really scrimmaging really whatsoever. So with limited options for scrimmages and then opting to not scrim much at all, are they going to be on the back foot when it comes to being prepared for this pool? Which, again, preparation I think is going to be absolutely key when you take a look at it. So let's go backwards, take a look at these 5 individually as far as where they've been able to kind of find their success, or maybe not so much success when it comes down to Black Ops 4 as a title in whole. You go back to Vegas, all 5 players played on PLQ teams, 3 of which were overtime, Natche, Risk, and Zeke. Yako still playing with the Vodafone Giants, and then Kreza played with Team Divine as they went through the play-in bracket and then were just cut a touch short from getting to pools there, so they had to go to the PLQ, and not the greatest of performances there. Go to Fort Worth, Kreza doesn't play. Denial is again what's represented for Natche, Risk, and Zeke, and Yako, still the Vodafone Giants, able to finish top 16. It was past that the Vodafone Giants really started to find their favor as they finished 4th at London. Natche, Risk, and Zeke not able to participate after recently having been cut, and the top 24 finish for Kreza playing with Vortex. Then the Vodafone Giants finished 3rd at Anaheim and are looking like a major favorite, and TrainHard Esport with Natche and Zeke at the time finished top 12 and looked very, very solid. Then you get to Miami, and with all the drama that went on with Heretics and thinking that they were going to pick up Yako initially, but then they pick up Vortex, Giants, I don't know what exactly the case was. I don't know the contractual things that happened, but Yako no longer plays for Giants. He gets picked up by TrainHard, and they put together a magical run with Kreza finishing top 12. It really kind of felt like each of these individual pieces came together at the exact right moment, and I was a fan of watching these guys play. I'm a huge Yako fan. I love watching that guy play, and I think as an SMG player, he brings a lot to the table. The biggest question mark for this team is, are they able to utilize that aggressiveness and that kind of prowess that you're seeing from someone like Yako and turn it into a full team environment? Now, they were 11-6 for their top 12 finish at Miami, and going back to the trip that they were able to take while they were there, it was a relatively comfortable one for them, mostly all the way through. They found a 2-0 versus the team of J4L in winners round 3, a squad that I thought was going to look very, very good. They blow them out of the water. They then blow In Control out of the water at a 3-0, another team that had like Cade on it. It was a squad that had a lot of power, and I thought was going to finish top 16. They blow them out of the water, and then they go game 5 versus Mazer before they finally fall. pretty darn impressive considering that Mazer finished third and they were one of the best teams in North America with a lot of pro experience. Then they get dropped down to the losers bracket. They play up against Sage Esports, and I don't know what happened after their loss versus Mazer, but they didn't look quite the same versus Sage. They lose that one 3-0, and they get cut a touch short from what I thought was going to be a pretty impressive run for at least a top 8 finish. I actually had them pinned to be a top 6 finisher based on how they were looking earlier in the tournament, but they didn't quite finish things off to expectations. So, what are the biggest things about this team as you look forward? You've got Yako and Risk running the SMGs. And Risk had a lot of questions, I think, kind of surrounding him during his time with Denial and Overtime, which is why he was eventually dropped. You know, whatever happened with all that drama that ended up going through there. Nat Shea has been pretty solid, kind of going back and forth between the Maddox and another ICR if he needs to. And then Zeke has been the player running the AR. Again, that's where I think the weaknesses start to set in, is that second AR, main AR kind of gameplay, because Whalers was the guy in the Overtime and Denial squad to lock down the main ICR spot, and he did so very, very well. Not exactly the most rehearsed spot for someone like Zeke, not the most difficult role, some would argue, but again, it's a very important role when it comes down to knowing when to push, when to be there with the team, and when to be that main kind of slow-styled, methodical anchor. Kreza in the mix as well. You kind of wonder, since he's the pure Englishman, what are the communication and comms going to look like with 3 Frenchmen, a Spaniard, and an Englishman? You figure it's probably comms in English, but how apt and fluid and fluent, I guess is the best way of saying, is this team when it comes down to their ability to approach cohesive comms in English? That's kind of where I wonder the most about this team. But beyond that, hearing from a couple other open teams that TrainHard's not scrumming at all makes me very, very worried about this team. And again, as someone who wants this team to succeed, I think, again, just throwing it out there, I'm a fan of this team just in its own self. It makes it hard to fully believe that this team's going to do much in this pool if they're not preparing, because you know OpTic is working on themselves. You know Evil Geniuses has been finding a lot of progress and they're doing a really nice job of preparing for their opponents. And then this Carnage Gaming team, I think it's going to be really interesting to watch these two play up against each other, because I think they're very similar in nature when it comes down to how they play the game and some of the upfront pressure that they kind of rely on with their SMG line. So I don't think there's a guaranteed win anywhere in this pool for TrainHard. I would feel better about it if they were getting good practice, or if I had a chance to sit down and get an interview with any of these guys and kind of pick their brains as far as what's been going on. How are you feeling? Like, you know, I'm not going to, no one's going to say that they're feeling bad about their chances, but you can kind of read in between the lines a little bit. And we don't really have the opportunity to do that with the squad. So they're kind of coming in as a complete mystery, a complete phantom of a team, because we just don't know what's going on with the team. How much prep are they getting? How much practice are they getting? Are they going to be able to play at the same level that would require them to beat a team like OpTic or Evil Geniuses? Currently, with the expectation that they're not getting a lot of practice time right now, I can't make the argument that they're going to be able to find wins versus Evil Geniuses or OpTic. They might be able to find a win versus a team like Carnage. I think that on paper, the team has the talent and the experience to do something like that, but they're going to have to win a game versus Evil Geniuses or OpTic to secure a top 2 spot. And if they're not getting practice now, I can't really confidently say that either of those two things will occur. I'm hoping for the best for this team because, again, candidly and transparently, I'm a big fan of it, but you take a look back at the pool, and this is a tough pool to go through. I think you would have been a lot more favorable if you were to have found yourself in Pool H, you know, where you're playing up against teams like Heretics and Splice, where you have some experience as Europeans against a squad like Heretics, but not going to be the case. So they find themselves where they are, and they're going to have to make some moves and really kind of show up and show off on that first day for me to really feel the confidence that they could potentially make a little bit of a surprise run to finish in the top 2 of this pool specifically. That's going to close things off, though, on TrainHard Esport. Let me know what you guys think about this all-EU squad and how far you think they might get, if far at all. And before that, make sure you hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell to make sure you don't miss the next video, which will be on a very controversial Pool H. So until the next one, hope you guys keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.